Within about 2 hours of week 2 of college football kicking off, my perception of the Big Ten Conference was nearly shattered. Not just because Texas walked in to Ann Arbor and waltzed all over Michigan and dismantled that sorry offense and exploited a defense with a plethora of first-round talent, but also because Bowling Green at one point was leading Penn State 17-7. We almost had 2 MACtion upsets over top 10 teams yesterday. Notre Dame couldn't escape, and Penn State did because, well, I think it was pretty obvious from a preseason standpoint and also from a week 1 standpoint that Penn State was the better team, vastly better team than Notre Dame. And because Penn State actually has a quarterback and skill position players that matter. But you look at this game, the final score being Penn State 34, Bowling Green 27. Bowling Green scoring 24 of their 27 points in the first half. And I got to be honest here, college football fans. I don't know exactly what to think of this game. Obviously, a inferior performance to the one that Penn State put on in Morgantown in week 1 over West Virginia. And at the same time, Penn State was able to find a way to win. They were able to game control the second half, scoring 14 points, holding Bowling Green to 3. Bowling Green was 0 of 1 on fourth down, and Bowling Green scored those 3 points in the second half on their final drive with less than a minute to go in the game. So, not really garbage time because it was just a 2-score game when they kicked that field goal to make it a 1-score game, but they had to rely on an onside kick to even have a shot to win. It was 34-24 for the final minutes of the fourth quarter. Penn State outgained Bowling Green in total yards. They won the turnover battle, the first down battle. Bowling Green had 4 minutes extra of possession. Penn State was hitting some big plays, but they were struggling in terms of consistency. Aller missing 7 of his passes. Once again, he was really only spoon-fed throws. And Penn State put together some impressive long runs, had some consistency on the ground game, but their offensive line gave up 2 sacks and 4 TFLs to a team who they outclass totally in terms of talent. Before we continue with this video, though, I want you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts and your reaction to this game down in the comment section below again. Like the video to help us get into the algorithm. Share it to any college football fans that you know by clicking that share button so we can gain more subscribers. Many of you probably think that you're already subscribed to the channel, but you may not be. So double check, and if not, please subscribe and click the notification bell so that you can get notified when we release new college football content here daily on College Football with Sam. Also, join my Discord server if you want to talk college football with other football fanatics via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. And thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel in an even extra way, watching, I always appreciate, same with your subscription and likes, but if you want to donate to the channel, my Patreon page link is in the description and also in the pinned comment. But let's get back to business, shall we? Drew Aller had a not-so-great day. 2 touchdowns, a pick, still averaged over 10 yards per completion, 204 passing yards on 20 attempts, and he did have 7 carries for 7 yards, had a rushing touchdown long of 14. I'm telling you, he is better at scrambling the ball than he was last year. He's a better passer. I look at this game, and my takeaway is that this is similar. I'm not going to lie, and I'll get into this a little more, I think, throughout the video. This is similar to Michigan's performance against Bowling Green last season. Little bit of a letdown spot. It's an odd game. You know, Bowling Green is just winning one-on-one matchups. Connor Bazelak was getting pressured. The pressure didn't get home, but he was also getting the ball out very quickly. And Harold Fannin Jr. had himself a day. 11 receptions, 137 receiving yards, over 10 yards per reception. A tight end putting up those numbers against Penn State's linebackers and DBs is very impressive, and he had a receiving touchdown. Malcolm Johnson Jr. also had a receiving touchdown. He had 8 receptions, 81 yards, 10.1 yards per reception, and again a touchdown. Bowling Green had 2 sacks. They had 4 TFLs, 2 passes defended, and Ja'Cory Benjamin did have an interception in the end zone. This game could have been in the 40s to the 20s in favor of Penn State, but inefficiencies did catch up to Penn State today. The Nittany Lions, or Saturday technically, Penn State was 2 of 9 on third down. They were 1 of 1 on fourth down. They did throw an interception, and they had 7 penalties for 76 yards, and there was a pass interference call or 2 in that game. They passed for more yards per attempt than Bowling Green did. They ran for more yards per carry than Bowling Green did. They had 37 rushing attempts and 20 passing attempts, total of 57 plays. 57 plays for 438 yards all in all. They averaged still over 7.5 yards per play. Still explosive. This offense is way better than the offense of last year. But I will say there is a problem here. The problem being that Bowling Green ran 66 plays. They ran more plays than Penn State. They were 7 of 14 on third down. They picked up 20 first downs. They were methodical. They took what Penn State gave them, both on offense and on defense. And overall, this game in a certain sense reminded me not just of Michigan versus Bowling Green last year, not in the same way where Michigan's defense had a really good game and stepped up and the offense looked bad. For Penn State's kind of the inverse of that. The defense looked very questionable, made a plethora of mistakes that I don't think you'll see for much of the season, but the offense shined. Penn State here, with the explosivity on offense, but some mistakes on offense, and a defense that looked suspect at times, this sort of reminded me of Oregon versus Boise State. Sort of. Not entirely, but I think there are some parallels there, where Penn State and Oregon have this very high ceiling, but they found themselves struggling against some of the better group of 5 teams, because Bowling Green has Jason Patterson. They have Connor Bazelak, Harold Fannin Jr., and Malcolm Johnson Jr. They have great skill position players and a quarterback who's played in the SEC and looks like he is going to be successful this season. Boise State has Ashton Jeanty. They have an experienced offensive line, and they have another All-American, I think, in Ahmed Hassanian, on the defensive end. So they have great players in the trenches, whereas Bowling Green has great players at the skill positions. And ultimately, in those 2 games, and I'll cover Oregon, Boise State later today, you have just some matchup advantages that those teams were able to take advantage of, and they capitalized on the mistakes of their superior opponent. Yes, Oregon and Penn State, I think, are superior teams, in fact, much superior teams compared to Bowling Green and Boise State. That doesn't mean I don't have some concerns for both Penn State and Oregon. For Penn State, my concern is secondary depth. Who can step up in the defensive back room? Bowling Green has a lot of tough players, and they had 3 players with a touchdown. They spread the ball around, and if you look at Penn State, the fact that they had 5 passes defended, and they had 2 interceptions, one by Tony Roas, who's having himself quite a year so far, but you look at how many times the corners were targeted, and they were flagged for PI, or they got burned by Malcolm Johnson Jr., Harold Fannin Jr., and the fact that Bowling Green was averaging 10 yards per reception, averaging 6.5 yards per pass attempt, and they got 2 touchdowns thrown on them. And also Bowling Green averaging 4.7 yards per carry. That's another big thing too. Penn State didn't get a single sack, and Bowling Green had a long rush of 32, another run of 29. Like, this defense for Penn State has, at this current moment, some issues, I think, in the secondary, and that performance in the first half was questionable all around. They put it together, Tom Allen did, and his players in the second half. But that first half performance cannot happen against Ohio State. It cannot happen against USC. And there are not many other teams on Penn State's schedule who I think, unless Penn State has a bad performance, will even be in their ballpark. But Illinois can run the football. And they showed that they have some receivers this weekend against Kansas. And they have a defense that is stout and will make you pay if you make a mistake. So Bowling Green has many tough players. And I think that, look, there is a world, as bold as this may be, I don't think it's the case, but it's possible. Maybe Bowling Green is the best non-conference team that Penn State ends up playing. This is a team that some picked to win the MAC and that returned a good amount of their players and an All-American tight end in Harold Fannin Jr. But make no mistake, despite the fact that they have tough players and that they were able to spread the ball around, and I thought that Scott Loeffler did a good job coaching in this game, you come away here thinking that Penn State is more vulnerable than previously expected, more so than we just underestimated Bowling Green here. I ultimately think in reviewing this game and watching the film that it was a letdown game. I think in a similar fashion to Michigan versus Bowling Green last year, where you just had one of the nation's best teams, for whatever reason, have a uncharacteristically bad game, because that was one of Penn State's worst performances on defense in a half that I can remember. I mean, that was outer space. That was like last year against Indiana, when Brennan Scoresby and Donovan McCulley and any of their other receivers for the Hoosiers, when Tom Allen was coaching there, ironically, were just tearing up Penn State's secondary. And it was a tied game, like 24-24 in the fourth quarter. Penn State pulls away with a bomb from Drew Aller to Keandre Lambert-Smith, and then a safety to win 33-24. I think it was that type of game. I don't think Penn State will probably have another performance that is this underwhelming, that is this bad and underrepresenting of the team they are for the whole season. But again, we don't know. You have to look at this game, and while you can speculate, because we only are through week 2, double the sample size of week 1, but still a very small sample size, it's okay to speculate. Like, Oregon will probably get better as the year goes on. Michigan could get better as the year goes on. There are other teams like Rutgers or USC who could be worse than where they stand now at 2-0. Michigan and Oregon could get worse than they are. Ohio State looks very good right now, but maybe they lose 2 close games to Penn State and Oregon, or Penn State and Michigan, or maybe even to Nebraska. Maybe Nebraska's just overinflated by an awful Colorado team and a bad UTEP team. We're only 2 weeks in. This season's very chaotic, but it can get even more chaotic. So maybe Penn State has more concerns than I'm led to believe. But they averaged once again over 7.5 yards per play on offense. And that defense clutched up in the second half. Bowling Green, this is their drive chart here. 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 60 yards, field goal. 10 plays, 73 yards, touchdown. 6 plays, 20 yards, turnover on downs. 4 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 1 play, kneel down, end of half. That was Bowling Green 24, Penn State 20. That's end of the second quarter. This is their second half drive chart. 3 plays, 4 yards, punt. 3 plays, -3 yards, punt. 6 plays, 16 yards, punt. 7 plays, 24 yards, interception. 3 plays, -1 yards, interception. 9 plays, 41 yards, field goal. That is a total of 64, 80, 77, 81 yards on 5 drives in a half. And one of those was to get a field goal where Penn State was probably, given that it was only a 10-point game, probably consciously playing safe, playing a little bit more prevent. Overall, that 80-something yards on 6 drives, that's not even 20 yards per drive on average. So I think that Penn State just overcame some adversity, a little bit of a letdown, reminded me of last year's game against Indiana for Penn State, last year's Bowling Green, Michigan game, and a little bit of Week 2's Oregon versus Boise State matchup. Just a little bit of all of those games where Penn State does have some issues, I think clearly in the secondary where they need more time to shore themselves up. They do have some depth concerns. I think very similar Penn State secondary is to Oregon's offensive line. But there's a lot of potential there. They still have Zakee Wheatley, KJ Winston, AJ Harris. Terry Smith is one of the best secondary coaches in the country, and he has Anthony Poindexter coaching the safeties too. So I think in the long run, that room will be fine, and they'll get better as the year goes on. The offense still looked better than last year's offense, despite only scoring 34 points, turning the ball over, and struggling a little bit on the offensive line and with creating consistent plays. I do think that this is a letdown game. Penn State does have a bye this week, so they'll look through what went wrong, and they'll prepare for a game against Kent State in Week 4, where they'll probably win by 70 points because Kent State's terrible. And then they got Illinois coming to town. And Illinois might be the best team they've played all year, and that'll be an interesting matchup to see in Week 5. Because, again, Penn State in Week 3 does have a bye, which is weird that you would get a bye this early, but with the new scheduling in college football and specifically the Big Ten, this is going to begin to be the norm, where teams do have, like, 2 bye weeks throughout the season, which maybe that's just me, but it used to be in my mind that there was really only 1 bye week. Occasionally a team had 2 bye weeks, and now got 2 bye weeks for basically everyone. Some teams even have 3. If, like Georgia Tech, for example, Georgia Tech has 3 bye weeks. And my player of the game here was running back Nicholas Singleton, 13 attempts, 119 yards, a rushing touchdown, and he also had a receiving touchdown on 14 yards. Singleton on the season, very impressive player so far, 26 carries, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, 9 yards per rush attempt, and he has a receiving touchdown as well with 27 receiving yards. He looks to have found his explosive self from 2021, and he also has some power to him. 6 foot, 227 pounds. I look for him to continue to have a big year, and his partner, Katron Allen, his running back 1B, Singleton's running back 1A, I would think at this point, he had a good game against Bowling Green. 14 carries, 101 rushing yards, 7.2 yards per attempt. This Penn State rushing offense, it's one of the best in the country, I believe. And you look at the Big Ten, where Michigan is having some struggles in running the ball. Oregon is. I think that Penn State and Ohio State right now have the best rushing offenses in the Big Ten. And that's going to be a fascinating matchup to see how both of them play against each other when they do take the field against each other in Happy Valley in, I believe, late October. Maybe early November. So Nicholas Singleton, got to give him props. He did very well in this game. Drew Aller was another player that even with his pick, he did overall still have a above average good performance. Not great, not elite like in week 1, but 2 touchdowns, a pick, averaging more than 10 yards per pass. He still looks better than what we saw from him last season. Definitely more willing to be aggressive, better scrambler, looks more veteran. This Penn State team, I'm telling you guys, is near elite, and they're one of the best teams in college football, regardless of this close game that they played against Bowling Green. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. Thanks to Crash2488 and Braska Rascal for being Heisman Patreon members. Thanks to Chris Lane, Connor Little OH, Ismar, and Tyler Nye for being All-American members. And thanks to John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janaisha Cockrell for being All-Conference Patreon members. If you want merchandise signed by me, sign up as a Heisman member, $25 a month for 6 months, and you will get free signed College Football with Sam merchandise delivered to you, shipped out by me. If you just want merchandise, not signed by me, but there also won't be that $25 a month for 6 months tie, you can just visit my merchandise store, which you will find along with my Patreon link in the description and down below in the pinned comment. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you all soon. Go Nittany Lions.